If you're a fan of a team selecting near the top of the draft this year, then you have a lot of promising talent to get excited about at the top of this draft class. The best prospects this year come with varying skill sets of all shapes and sizes, and of course the positives that they bring are the reason why they're projected to be the first names off the board. But in the real world, you need to factor in both the positives and the negatives. That brings us to today's video. Today we'll be going through each of the top prospects in this draft, and we'll be identifying the biggest current weaknesses in their games. This is not meant as a way to discredit them or to be unnecessarily negative. It's just a way to paint a realistic picture of what could potentially hold these guys back at the next level if they don't work on improving it. Before we start though, it turns out a good amount of you watching right now aren't even subscribed to the channel, so if you enjoy the content, consider hitting the subscribe button, as not only does it help out a ton, but it also very much appreciate it. Now with that being said, let's begin. Starting off with the top prospect in the class this year, Cooper Flagg, the biggest weakness in his game right now is that he has a bit of a loose handle. With how physically advanced Flagg has always been for a player his age, he's been able to comfortably get to his spots without much pushback against high school and college defenders, but at the NBA level, when you're going to be defended by the likes of guys like Jalen Williams, Herb Jones, and the likes of that level, he's going to need to tighten things up a bit. Keeping the ball closer to his body, especially on drives to the rim, should be something he's working hard on improving going into his rookie season, because there are definitely a lot of elite defenders in the NBA with the strength and length to poke the ball away and create turnovers if he's not more careful with it. He tends to play awkwardly high with the ball in his hands and doesn't always create much separation, so if he wants to reach his absolute ceiling, this is where he can start in order to accomplish that. The next top prospect we'll be discussing today is Dylan Harper, and his biggest weakness going into the draft is his pull-up jumper. Dylan Harper is a strong, crafty guard with unbelievable playmaking skills and natural basketball IQ running the offense, and more often than not can get to the rim at will, where he's an unbelievable finisher in the paint. But when defenders are able to keep him in front of them and force him to settle for a pull-up jumper, whether it be in the mid-range or from three, that has always been a big win for the defense. At Rutgers this year, Harper made just 27.5% of his pull-up mid-range jumpers and just 29.6% of his pull-up three-point jumpers, which just is not good enough for a lead guard in today's NBA. Of course, he did go a stretch dealing with injury, and he's a very reliable shooter off the catch, so there's reason to believe he can improve in this area with hard work, but at the moment, it's easily the part of his game that he needs to work on the most. Next up is Ace Bailey, and his biggest weakness going into the draft is his selfish mindset. Ace Bailey obviously has unbelievable natural talent as a basketball player and is probably the best pure shot maker in the class, but what separates a guy from being an empty stats player and an impactful winner is more often than not their mindset, and everything that Ace has shown so far gives off the impression that he's all about himself. At Rutgers, his shot selection was very poor, as he isolates more than anyone else in college basketball. He had the lowest blow-by rate of all of the top prospects in this class, demonstrating a lack of wiggle and an inability to beat defenders off the dribble, yet he would still refuse to pass the ball, settling very often for tough pull-up contested jumpers. Then when you factor in his combine interview where he said those were good shots that he practices, plus the fact that reports are coming out now about him refusing to work out with certain teams, trying to control his own destiny, I'm just getting a lot of red flags about his mindset as he prepares for the next level. Next up is VJ Edgecombe, and the biggest weakness in his game going into the draft is his self-creation skills. Edgecombe's allure as a prospect is that he could be a truly elite perimeter defender. He's a freak athlete who can make highlight plays at the rim that get the team going, he moves well off the ball, and he does whatever is asked of him to help his team win games. But right now, he's not really someone you can trust to go get a bucket for themselves yet. He heavily favors his right hand, he's not a consistent pull-up shooter right now, and he struggled getting by college defenders off the dribble this year at Baylor. It also doesn't help that he doesn't draw many fouls or get to the free throw line that much. His volume in these situations was low because he does well playing to his strengths and knows how to make the most of his minutes, but until he improves in such a pivotal area like this, then his ceiling will be slightly lower than some of the other players around him, even if his floor is simultaneously much higher. The next top prospect we'll be discussing today is Kon Knueppel, and his biggest weakness heading into the draft is his lateral quickness. Knueppel's game has never been predicated on athleticism, as he's one of the most skilled wing players in the draft this year, but his concern is definitely with his ability to keep up with the top-end athletes of the NBA. Defensively, Kon competes hard and uses his strength to be physical with his matchup, but against quicker players, there's good reason to believe he could struggle to stay in front of them. At the Combine, they do a lane agility drill testing how quickly players can stop and start and change directions, and Kon had the 6th slowest time in that drill out of the entire event. He did finish closer to the top in the shuttle run drill, which is a much more condensed version of that drill, so in short bursts there's room for optimism, but over the course of an entire game, his upside as a perimeter defender is pretty limited. Next up is Tre Johnson, and his biggest weakness going into the draft is his lack of strength. Tre Johnson is one of the best pure scorers in the class with elite shot creation skills and a silky smooth pull-up jumper, but his shot volume in the paint is relatively low for a reason. He's not particularly strong or explosive, whether it be with his first step, attacking the rim, or shooting through contact. He only attempted 2 shots per game at the basket in half-court settings at Texas, which is very low for someone with his usage, and when he did get to the rim, he wasn't a very reliable finisher, making just 46% of his layups. When you watch him play, you can tell he's shying away from contact and would rather get his shot off from the perimeter than in the paint, and while he was an elite shooter, knocking down 40% of his threes this year, he's going to need a more balanced shot diet in the NBA to score the ball at the same rate that he did in college, and that won't happen until he hits the weight room and adds some strength to his frame so he can handle the rigors of more drives to the rim through contact. Next up is Malawatch, and his biggest weakness going into the draft is his hand-eye coordination. This is basically a fancier way of saying he's an incredibly raw talent at this point in time, but his work with his hands impacts a lot of his shortcomings at the moment. Overall, Malawatch has all of the physical tools an NBA team could dream of from a center prospect, as a legit 7-footer with a ridiculously long wingspan and standing reach, but he has a long way to go before he learns how to put those tools to good use. His struggles in this regard were present all season long, but Duke's Final Four game really exposed them on the biggest stage, as Malawatch failed to reel in a single rebound against an undersized Houston team. He's not great at anticipating where the ball is going to go off the rim, he doesn't have the strongest hands, so the ball gets ripped away from him quite often on the glass, and when he's in the paint trying to score, he's also been prone to committing turnovers because of his lack of ball security. Next up is Jeremiah Fears, and his biggest weakness going into the draft is his defense. Fears is a polarizing prospect for a few reasons, with his offensive production not being very efficient yet, but his incredible creativity on the ball, his natural passing talent, and his shot-making skills give reason to buy in on that end. The defensive end is another story, though. Fears just doesn't have the fundamentals of defense down right now, which is worrying for someone who is also pretty small for an NBA guard. He's already at risk of being taken advantage of physically, weighing in as one of the lightest players in the draft class this year, with a wingspan of just 6'5" long. So in order to make up for that, he would need to be someone who is locked in at all times, with the instincts and motor to fight hard, and he just doesn't have that right now. He consistently allowed rim pressure getting beat off the dribble, his ability to maneuver through screens was pretty poor, and there were too many instances of him falling asleep defending off the ball for my liking. Next up is Collin Murray-Boyles, and his biggest weakness going into the draft is his lack of shooting. Murray-Boyles is one of the most unique talents in this year's draft because there are a lot of parts of his game that lead you to believe he can be an elite glue guy in a lineup on both ends of the floor, but the thing that severely limits his upside is the fact that he's not a reliable shooter of the basketball at all. He's someone who plays most of his minutes at power forward and center, and in college he dominated as a scorer because physically he can win most matchups in the paint, and his post work and finishing skills are excellent. But he measured in at just 6'7" at the combine, making him very undersized for the position, and in the NBA, he's not going to be fed nearly as many post touches as he got at South Carolina. To be effective on offense in the NBA while being that undersized, you simply have to be able to space the floor as a shooter, but Murray-Boyles is a non-factor from the outside. He attempted just one single three-point shot per game this season and shot just 26% on those shots, so needless to say, he's got some work to do. And finally, the last prospect we'll be discussing today is Derik Queen, and his biggest weakness going into the draft is his lack of athleticism. Queen might be the most offensively gifted and skilled big man in this draft this year, but the big worry when it comes to him is the defensive end, which stems fully from the fact that his athletic limitations are very glaring. He's not the quickest, most mobile, or most agile player in the world, he lacks explosiveness, and things like this not only show up regularly in game film, but the measurements at the combine also back them up. In the lane agility drill, Derik Queen ranked dead last. In the standing vertical leap, Derik Queen ranked dead last. In the max vertical leap, Queen ranked second to last. In the shuttle run, Queen ranked second to last. In the three-quarter sprint, Queen ranked second to last. You get my point. For him to succeed, he's going to need to be consistently involved in the offensive scheme because defensively, he is going to get targeted a lot. And with that being said, that's all I have for you today. Make sure to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and comment down below what you think about the weaknesses of these prospects. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all next time.